Well, of course, the 4th of July is coming up this Thursday, and we are now joined with Mike Short, who is the official cannoneer of the firing of the cannons that takes place in Fort Mill on July 4th morning, 10 a.m. So welcome, Mike.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back.
We've teased you all morning. We said, Mike Short's coming, Mike Short's coming, and he is here, the man, the myth, the legend.
People started cutting their radios off.
No, they didn't. Well, tell us about the firing of the cannons in Fort Mill, what it is, how it got started, and you said there's a little bit of a legend to the story.
Well, I'll tell you the way that I heard it, and this is from the people that started it. Back in the early 70s, my uncle Clyde Short and my dad Charles Short and a few other guys were standing around the bar at the American Legion in Fort Mill. And they started discussing these cannons that have been in the park for, decades.
So right there at Veterans Park.
Right in the park there. And the conversation went to the point of, well, you think we could fire those cannons? They haven't been fired since the Civil War. Well, certainly we can. My uncle said, I can fire them. You guys go to town and clean them out. Because people are always pushing stuff up in the barrels. And I'll go to my store and I'll make a round and we'll fire the cannon. So my dad and a few of the other guys went to the park and started cleaning out the debris from the cannon while my uncle went and made his round. And the chief of police came by and saw him there and said, what you boys doing? We're going to fire this cannon. Oh, no, you're not. He said, if you fire that cannon, I'm going to arrest all of you. I'm going to charge you with discharging a firearm in public, a violation of the NORS ordinance, and anything else I can come up with, and I'm going to fine you $1,000. And I've heard different stories about who it was, but one of them said, I got $1,000, shoot it. And they did. And ultimately, I think what happened was the chief of police wound up directing traffic along Main Street so they wouldn't shoot a car coming up Main Street when that happened. And when the town discovered that a pound of black powder would not damage those big cannons, and actually they're rifles, they're not cannons, but they wouldn't damage them, they thought, hey, this is a great idea. We can start doing this on the 4th of July, and it has been going on ever since. Now, my uncle and my dad, excuse me, were kind of in charge of that. My uncle was in charge for the first, 25 years or so, and then I started in the early 90s kind of helping my uncle as he was getting older. And then when he passed away, I took over in 2000, I think was the first time I actually did it completely by myself.
Wow.
So I've been doing it ever since, and now I'm training up my replacements.
So this is, you said, it's the 52nd annual, but the 53rd time that you've done it. Now, how did that happen?
How did
like, how are we off? How are we off a year?
Well, you count the first time it was fired is the first time, so you get a year.
And then
in there,
from
so
there,
that's the way it works,
yeah.
right? So it got to be official the year after they fired it.
So how big of a crowd does this draw? I mean, you invite people to come. Like that's
well, we generally have several hundred people show up. When they were doing the fireworks in conjunction with that, had several thousand, but they've separated those two events to keep from having such a large crowd. But we will have several hundred people there, and everybody's excited about it. We used to only fire one of them, and back when I took over in 2000, I said, asked the mayor, do you want to fire them both? I mean, there's no reason not to. You can do that? Well, certainly we can. We'll just make rounds and we'll fire them both, and we'll make as much noise as we can. We, had the one year where we actually cracked the window in the old Fort Mill Times office.
Wow.
That was the year that John Mandel, who was a British citizen, had bought the Fort Mill Times, and he had apparently replaced the glass in the front window, and when he did, I think he put it in too tight. So when we fired the cannon, it cracked the window, and he came out waving a little British flag of surrender. So we all, and every year since
that's a good story.
Every year since then, I've had people ask me, "Are you going to crack some windows this year?"
That is really funny. So that's like the only mishap you've ever had.
Yeah.
Well, we've had one year we had a misfire.
Okay.
And, that's the only happened once. Thank the good Lord. Because if that happens, we have to stop everything and wait 10 minutes before we do anything.
Again.
Just in case there's a spark or something in there. And then I have to pull the round out and reset it, which takes 5 or 10 minutes. So hopefully, prayerfully, that will never happen again. And so we try to make sure that we've got everything as safe as possible and as ready to go as possible. And, we're real big on safety protocols.
Right.
We've had people through the years, two in particular I can think of. One was one of the TV stations set their cameraman down, and he wanted to set his camera up down at the bottom of Main Street right in front of where I was shooting.
Yeah, well,
so he could
that.
get a good shot. And I advised him if he wanted to keep his camera, he would move it.
Right.
And I had a lady one year that pulled her a baby in a stroller down there. She wanted her baby to see it head on, and I thought, ma'am, that's not a really good idea.
Head on.
Because if there's any debris, I tell the town, if there's anything in that gun when I get ready to shoot it, I'm not firing it. We have to be very safe about that. But should something accidentally be in there and be ejected, it's a projectile. Those guns were designed to kill people. They weren't designed just for to look at. So we have a lot of assistance from the police and the fire department to keep people away from in front of the guns when we shoot them.
And you said this actually, that it went on during COVID, like you didn't want it not to happen.
Well, they canceled the whole event.
Right.
And I had gone over that morning and had breakfast with my cousin in Rock Hill, and it was a Wednesday. I remember that. And I just couldn't let it pass. So I stopped by one of the fireworks stores, and I bought some big fireworks and pushed them up inside the cannon. I took my daughter over there. I said, "You need to come film this so we can prove that we actually did it." And she came over and filmed it on her telephone, and I made a little speech and said, this is, it's not the size of the round that we're shooting, it's the size of the sentiment behind it, because we're not going to let this pass. So, I put those things up in the gun, and she and I set it off, and all kind of explosions inside the gun. So we kept the continuation going.
That's good.
And now we are the only community in the country that has had a continual firing of a cannon, the longest in the whole country. So
Mike, you have to be so proud, because this really stemmed from curiosity killed a cat. Good old boys coming together to say, "Hey, can you do that?"
Of course we can.
I'm going to figure it out, and here you are.
Well, these guys were all World War II veterans, and my uncle particularly was in the Army in Europe. And before the war, he was with the Civilian Conservation Corps building the parkway. And he was a powder monkey. That's, they're the guys that drill the holes and put the powders down and blew the side of a mountain
So they know
off.
what they're doing.
So he knew what he was doing, and
Right.
he trained me. And now I'm training my son and my grandson. And this year, if things work out, my granddaughter is going to be.
That's awesome.
So we're starting them young, so they'll know how
That's
to do
right.
it. Because
Keeps
I'm
the
not going to be
legacy.
around forever, but we want to make sure this stays on as long
But
as we can.
it's events like this that make these small towns and really York County as a whole so special.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't like you said, you don't hear about these kind of events happening very much, and some places don't even have probably the cannons to do it. So it's special. That's
they're
special
rare.
in its own right.
These particular cannons there aren't many of them left, quite frankly. And the town of Fort Mill got these, or the town didn't, but Captain Sam White brought them in when they developed that park in the early 1900s. They dumped them off on the side of the railroad track. They brought them in on a flatbed rail car, and they laid there in the mud for a long time while they tried to figure out, what are we going to do with these things now? And I think a fellow, he was from Pineville, said, "I've got a team of mules, and I can pull them up and I can mount them for you for $100 each." And that's
Wow.
how they got in the park, and they've been there ever since.
It's amazing. Well, if people want to come and be a part of the event, tell them all the details and what they need to know.
10 o'clock on the 4th of July. Be there a little early. The town always says, we're going to do this at 10, but I'm not sure how they look at their watch, because we've never done it exactly at 10. But, be a few minutes early, enjoy some of the festivities. There'll be some speechified and, those kind of things by
Some singing, I'm sure.
A little bit of singing and those kind of things. And we will we'll try to make a little noise for everybody. After the guns have been fired and they've taken down the tape, people are welcome to come into the park and look at the cannons, and I'll talk with anybody who wants to talk about it. I'll stay as long as I need to, because I love it.
And where do people need to park? Where's the best place to park?
Anywhere they can find a place to park. There's, behind Main Street, behind the stores, then the church parking lots that are close by. Anywhere they can find and just come on down and join the crowd.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here. This is Mike Short, who is the official cannoneer of the 52nd annual firing of the cannons right there in the town of Fort Mill. Happy 4th of July to you, Mike.
Happy 4th of July to you.